adventures. Today is going to be our wrap-up for the month of December 2023. We're actually filming this before the month is over because it is the 31st, but that's alright. I'm gonna get right into here. I read several books this month, so I have a longer list than Kate does, and the first one that I read was The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley, I believe. And this is a murder mystery. I needed an audiobook to read and asked my friend. They recommended, oh, why don't you read this one? And it happened to be available, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll read this one. Ended up actually enjoying it a lot more than I'd enjoyed the Agatha Christie's, but we'll talk about that when my review eventually goes up. So yeah, that was nice, a pleasant surprise in that way. Then I finished up Threadlight Trilogy with Bonds of Chaos. This is the third book in the Threadlight Trilogy by Zach Argyle. Liked this one a lot. There was some things that I didn't love about it, just a handful of, well, really one main thing, one trope or story, I don't know, one idea that was being played with that I don't love ever, because it's always unrealistic and I can always poke holes in it. But the way it was done in here it was executed fine. It's one of those things that I don't ever care to see that much. But other than that, I liked the story and I thought it was a good ending to that trilogy. Then I finally listened to The Last of the Mohicans. This has been one that's been on my list since the beginning of the year, I think since Q1. And it was one that I wanted to read all year and that I've wanted to read for a long time. And then I didn't read it at the beginning of the year because I realized that there was a prequel to this book, and I figured maybe I should read the prequel first since it's the first book in the series. And so I went and read The Deerslayer by James Fenimore Cooper. That's who wrote these books. And then I kept pushing this one off and just never ended up getting to it until December when I finally sat down and listened to it. Quite a different book than I expected, because what I remember of the movie was not what happened in the book. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a bad adaptation of a movie or of a book or something like that. Then I was sent the audiobook for Death of a Christmas Tree Salesman by Patricia Meredith, so I listened to that one again. Just, again, I needed an audiobook and it was available because I'd just been sent it, and so I wanted to listen to it and see what it was like. The narrator is Andrew D. Meredith, so I knew it was going to be a good audiobook as well, and it was a good audiobook. I don't really have a whole lot of other thoughts to this because we've already done a review and I've already talked about this once. I will do one more here real quick, and that is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot series, or Murderbot Diaries, or whatever that series is called. I've heard lots of things about this, mostly positive things about this, with a few people who are saying, it's fine, it's not that great. And I ended up being one of the, it's fine, it's not that great. And I got the audiobook. The audiobooks or the first 4 were all free on Audible, and so I was like, okay, let's try them out. I need an audiobook. Again, it's the same story. I need an audiobook, so I pick it up and listen to it. Since it was free, I didn't have an issue with it, and I was actually really hoping to enjoy it, and I was really hoping that I could enjoy some more sci-fi, and then I just didn't really. And that's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is.
So the only book I read in December, and actually that I completed in the last 3 months, was The House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin Craig. This is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses, which was a story I'd heard a rendition of growing up, and I really loved this story, and I'm always interested in trying new things. I was a little surprised. I didn't know what I was getting into going into it, about how it was more of a thriller than I was expecting, but I still enjoyed it. I liked the little bit of unknown and a little almost fear in there. Very interesting, a lot of ghosts and things like that. But overall, I found it very fascinating. I did have some questions at the end that I don't feel like were fully resolved, but if I remember rightly, it's not the end of the series, so those might be answered in the future.
And then I finally finished a book that I started in October, and that is Phased by Victoria Tekken. This is Tori Talks is the author, which is a YouTuber as well. Anyways, I wanted to read this one partly because it was Tori that wrote it, and I wanted to support her and wanted to see what her writing was like, but also because there was a group of people reading it at the same time in October, and so I picked it up and started slowly physically reading it, and it was very slowly, and I finally just had to. Part of it was November. I basically had no time to physically read, and so December I sat down and was like, all right, I'm gonna get through this one and finish it up because I have several other books that I need to finish up as well. So I finally pushed through and finished this one up. I like it quite a bit. It's not my favorite, and I will have a review relatively soon because, well, it'll be several months away, but I'll have a review for it. I will film my review relatively soon, so I won't spoil my thoughts now, but you can look out for them there. I don't think I want to talk anymore about it at the moment. Then we have Age of Swords. This is the second book in the Legends of the First Empire series by Michael J. Sullivan. I read the first book, Age of Myth. When did I read that? In September. And so I needed another book, and it happened to be available. And so I picked it up. I asked on one of the Discords what audiobook recommendation was, and somebody mentioned Rhaeria, and I was like, oh, that's a good recommendation, and I went and looked, and it wasn't available. But then I remembered, oh wait, this is the prequel series, I should go read the second book in that series. And so I looked, and it was available, so I picked it up. A lot about in this book that I really did like, again, a lot of the same issues as I had with the first book, which I may have only filmed my review. I'm not sure if I've released my review of Age of Myth yet. No, I haven't. But I have filmed that review, and so you can see my thoughts then when that comes out. Moving through here, trying to actually make progress on this on this video. We've got Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I listened to the audiobook for this one. I've wanted to reread this series since the first time I read it, and I just haven't had the opportunity to. I listened to the I reread the first book last year, I think. And I decided at that point that I wanted to listen to the audiobooks for the series to get a different experience from it and not take up my time physically reading a series that I'd already read before. The second book has always been, or rather the second movie is my least favorite of the movies, but I found on this reread that I actually like the second book, I think, more than I liked the first book. So that was interesting to me, but still, I don't know, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the series because everybody's talked about the series at this point. Then I finally finished Tales from the Perilous Realm by J.R. Tolkien. This is a collection of his short stories and poetry and essay. It's got his On Fairy Stories essay, which is extremely famous. And I started this like March or April or something like that, and was just slowly reading through it. Wanted to slowly pick my way through it as I went through the year. And I got into December and I hadn't finished it yet, so I was like, all right, I need to buckle down and actually finish this one as well. And so I did that, and to no surprise, it's one of the best books that I read this year. It's the first time I've read this book, and so I was really excited to actually get into it and read all these stories, and I had a lot of fun with them. Two more, and so one that I really need to talk about, and that is Winter's Heart, which is book 9 of The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. So I have been making my way through Wheel of Time rather rapidly, actually, because I don't remember, that's not important. Anyways, I read lots of books this year, and I didn't think that I was going to. And this one, I enjoyed it okay. It's not my favorite, but it's also not my least favorite of the series, and for one of the slog books, I didn't think it was that bad. I don't really have a whole lot of other thoughts on that. I will talk about them when I eventually get to my review of this one as well. And then the last book that I am reading and will finish tonight, which is the 31st, is The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. I try and end the year with this, or sometime in December reread The Hobbit every year. And it ended up being the last book that I'm physically reading. I've got 70-ish pages left, and so I know that I'll be able to make it through this by the time the year switches over at midnight for me. So I'll get through this one for sure. But I wanted to include it just because I will have read it in December by the time you're seeing this. So that is all the books that we read. It was mostly me talking, and I was trying to go through it rather rapidly so Kate wasn't just sitting there bored. She probably was anyways. But anyways, thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure, and thank you for joining us in 2023 and for our final wrap-up of the year. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay well.